Jacques Saint-Germain was a French count who is shrouded in mystery. All historical records point to him being a very well-known figure in high society, having close ties to people like Marie Antoinette and other French royalty. Even the philosopher Voltaire was literally quoted as saying that Jacques is simply a man who will not die. Once the French Revolution came around, however, Jacques just disappears from historical records. Until, over 100 years later, 1900s, New Orleans, a man with the same name gets off a boat from France claiming to be a descendant of the original Jacques Saint-Germain. And all historical records I've come across show that he didn't marry or have any kids. This man was extremely wealthy and would throw lavish parties at his home in the French Quarter. He would sip on his red wine and entertain guests with his vast talents and knowledge of musical instruments. It's actually said that he could pick up any instrument and within a few minutes be able to play it as if he had been practicing his whole life. Party guests have said that there would be endless food and drinks at these parties, but none of the guests could recall seeing Jacques actually eat the food. New Orleans easily has the best food in the United States, so seeing as though their host wouldn't indulge could send some red flags. Since the liquor and the wine were flowing, no one really seemed to care though. These parties would continue for years until one evening in 1903, two men knock on the door. They were friends of his, and they wanted him to join them in the Marigny at the gambling table. Jacques always spread the wealth at these craps tables, so he was somebody to invite at any time. This night, however, he informed his friends that he was a bit indisposed at the moment, but to come back in the morning. Just then, a woman falls from the second-story balcony, crashing at the men's feet. She begins screaming and claiming that Jacques tried to kill her by going for her neck. When the police arrived to take her story, they didn't use their full capabilities. The officers just questioned Jacques, but he told them that he would not mind cooperating in the morning, when his head was a little clearer as he had one too many drinks. The police actually agreed to allow Jacques to meet them at the station in the morning to collect his testimony. This happened after a small bribe, you know. NOPD have rarely shielded away from corruption. The next day, Jacques did not show up to the station as promised. The police went to his home to discover it to be unlocked and completely empty. Baffled, the cops noticed the only things left behind were a couple of bottles of Jacques' red wine that he would drink at every party, never allowing anyone else to have some. One officer opened the bottle and took a sip, and he began to vomit and gag as the bottle smashed to the floor into a million pieces. Jacques had been drinking a combination of human blood and absinthe to keep the blood from coagulating. Jacques was never seen again or heard from again, and his story is still one of the great mysteries and intrigues of New Orleans. Today, there is a man named Jack who roams around the French Quarter claiming to be an actual descendant of the original Jacques Saint-Germain. Watch yourself around him though. He's known to go for people's neck. Follow us at Louisiana Dread.
The whole idea around Saint Germain, you know, people allege that he was a vampire,
Right.
Because for different reasons. I mean, one is, you know, he's an immortal. He's never seen eating, and he's somehow making these creams or things like that women can use for beauty that they're putting on their face, and it's supposed to be like the best thing that they've ever used, right?
Right.
Nice. Yeah, I'm happy to say I've never watched any of the Twilight movies. Like, I refuse. Like, the last thing I want to see is one of those glittery dudes walking around trying to pawn off as a vampire. I'd really like to hear, John, what you think about Saint Germain. And I asked you to look into, and you had looked into this a little bit yourself already.
Oh yeah, we looked into it a while ago, because the stories around Saint Germain are pretty out there, and they go in all these different directions. And some people praise him. I think more people praise Saint Germain than they do like turn him into a vampire, but they're unsure, especially around the Mount Shasta area and the New Age communities. So we wanted to know, you know, who this subject was, who this subject is, basically just like kind of like remote viewing them and getting sort of a character map of the subject. And what we saw was that, okay, so this person started out life more or less as an orphan, physical human, as an orphan. And they were brought into a family that was very well-to-do, very high up, well-to-do family that was also part of a secret society. And in this secret society, what they do is they search for longevity, and they have means for creating physical longevity. So they took this child and through a painful process allowed this child, I don't know about living forever, but turn into a person, a human that can live for a very, very, very long time. Saint? No, I wouldn't call this person a saint. This person is more in the line of a vampire.
Wow.
Literally, seriously, a vampire.
But
And
in the same way that vampires feed on blood, or is it like
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like so overt in the way that we think about vampires, but it was something about taking energy from other humans. I mean, I don't remember seeing anything like specifically drinking blood, but it was a process of infusing their own energetic structure, their body, with energy from other human beings. I mean, it didn't go into blood specifically, not like what we got with like Vlad the Impaler and Bathroy, right? Those guys were like seriously on this super duper dark side. Where when you get to Saint Germain character, it's dark, but not as dark as those guys. It's like it's connected, but not 100% like the same thing. And I think there are multiple or different ways that these secret societies and these people decide to achieve longevity. And this person, Saint Germain, not like 100% totally self-centered like you would think of as a vampire, but dark nonetheless. Definitely not saint, and definitely not like an ascended master like people put forth. In fact, when we were remote viewing, current location of the subject, dead or alive, whatever, subject was alive, absolutely alive, as well as living underground, like underground. When we had initially got this subject in the, I would say like 1600s, 1700s, and showing up in history, it seemed like that subject was younger. They were messing around. It's like a teenager. Like they were in their teen times, even though they were appeared to be in their 40s. They'd lived a very long time, but mentally they were in their teens as far as how long they were going to live. And they were kind of like going out in the world and sowing their oats and messing around because they could manipulate humans. And they could show up at these parties and then show up at a party like 50 years, 30 years later and meet the same people. While those people are really old, they still look the same age and they remember who this person was. So it's kind of like that, where this person was out messing with people because they were sort of like a teenager as far as like the span of their lifetime goes, right? They could have been many hundreds of years old at that point when they decided to do that stuff. And it seemed like in the data, it was kind of frowned upon what he was doing when it came to those that had lived longer than him. They were like going, what is he doing? He shouldn't be doing this. He's supposed to stay hidden. We stay hidden. We stay hidden. We stay underground. So yeah, he seemed like he was just screwing around quite a bit.
So we kind of open up a can of worms there because it's revealing that there is some type of process potentially that they're aware of.
It was a change with the blood, absolutely a change with the blood, but it wasn't like it wasn't like this person would go out and bite people and drink their blood. It was like some infusion process that would occur, right? And it would require other humans, but it wasn't like it was straight up how you think of vampires going and sucking the blood out of somebody's neck. It wasn't like that at all.
But there seem to be others who've gone through this, according to what you are saying, that were kind of looking down on this almost of what he was doing because he shouldn't have been interacting with society almost, right?
He shouldn't have been interacting with society. No.
Is it because those other guys that have done this are more spiritual and they are like they're
outside of the human drama, outside of the human dramas. And what Saint Germain was doing at that period of time was playing with his ego. Like, I can do this, you know, and I'm sure he did a lot more things than just what appeared in the history books, in lore. I mean, he's showing people technology where he can change matter into something else. He's doing that. He's screwing with people, right? But
Yeah,
he's
because he knows how to do some of this stuff, and he
exactly.
wants to show it off and do
Exactly. And he was a real person. He is still a real person. Now, though, he's like living the way that these others live, the ones that were older than him. And
he's
living,
not coming out and
no,
interacting.
he's not coming out and interacting. No. So when you get to like Mount Shasta and you get to the whole ascended master idea, absolutely not. Like, I have no idea what they are talking about, because the real Saint Germain is a vampiric being. So
and it's interesting here. Like I said, I've never watched those Twilight movies. Like, I can't bring myself to watch them. But Lindsay wrote a note here, and she said, in Twilight, the ancient Italian vampires and the mafia are called Volturi, like Voltaire, who knew Saint Germain. Almost as if there's like a hat tip to that whole thing there.
Right.
Gosh, so underground somewhere, is this like similar to, I mean, are we talking about Hollow Earth here, or is it like some other thing?
It's staying out of the sunlight. It's kind of what it seemed like.
So this whole idea that the sunlight actually has
there's
an impact.
some effect of that. Yeah, it's more like, I mean, it didn't seem like it was 100% across the board, but it was like at a certain point through some kind of aging process that these beings go through, they would go more towards living underground, like away from people, away from light, just being in the darkness in general. So it didn't necessarily seem like this person was living and being with people at this point in time on the surface world. But I don't think things are so cut and dried, right? Things aren't so cut and dried as far as like how people perceive vampires to be, where it's like, oh, they can only sleep during the day because they'll burn in the sun. It's not totally like that. And it's not totally like they're going to bite people's necks, suck the blood out, except when you get to like Vlad the Impaler and Bathroy. Those guys were very interested in just the consuming of all that stuff, in a very negative, way more negative way than Saint Germain. And I mean, that stuff
almost like
that was nasty.
Beast-like, like animalistic almost.
It was very animalistic. Yeah, very animalistic, and very like the remote viewers in viewing those guys, because when we were viewing Bathroy and we were viewing Vlad, we were using this method called non-local image streaming in group format. So it would be a group of remote viewers going in together all at once. And it's a mix of male and female viewers. So when Vlad was being remote viewed, the women in the remote viewing group were kind of falling in love with him. And he was very like, they were just saying, "Oh, he's just incredible. He's incredible." Meanwhile, he's all bloody. He's drinking blood. All this crazy stuff, but he's incredible. He's super glamorous. He's amazing. Then, when viewing Bathroy, it was the same thing for the men. Oh, she's super hot. She's great. Amazing woman. But also digging into their dark side and what that looked like, which was just heinous, horrible stuff. When it was revealed to them what they were remote viewing, they were kind of aghast, and they were being charmed, like literally by the energy of these subjects, because these subjects are still somewhere out there, right? Because they are part of the same sort of genre as Saint Germain. Not exactly the same, probably connected in some tangential way, but I think what they've done is that some of these groups go in different directions in how they go about getting their sustenance.
Yeah. So, wow. Different camps, maybe.
Right.
And now when everybody was looking, or when you or whoever was looking at Saint Germain, was there a similar type of, I don't know, attraction?
Charm? Yeah, attraction. Yeah, there was. But with those, the viewers weren't as vocal on that aspect of Saint Germain as it was when we did because for those we did paper sessions where the viewers are working alone singularly, and they wouldn't be as vocal about it. When they were doing it in a group, they were more vocal about it. It was like this group thing infected them. Yeah. So it was not cool. Yeah. Well, that was with Vlad and Bathroy.
Okay, so it's really interesting that you said that he was an orphan, because there is, when you look at people trying to debunk this and trying to figure out what's really going on with this character, they're looking for evidence of him being born,
Right.
etc. There is an account of him being born in 1690 by an Italian princess who I guess had an affair with a tax accountant or something like that. I don't even know the name of the princess. Not even important. The main thing is, though, the boy was born, is hidden, and grows up in this, what I told you about earlier, a place called San Germano. And so I'm just wondering, in your data, was this guy much older than 1690? Are we talking about a dude that's hundreds of years old, or are we talking about someone who could potentially have been born in 1690 and then in the late 1700s he's about 188, 100 years old, whatever it is, and he's screwing around, having a good time and entertaining his ego?
Yeah, my impression was that literally he could have been born in the 1600s. He could have been born, came to this earth life in that time frame. I know you read this one story about Christ carrying the cross.
Was it the guy's name Cartophilus or something?
Yeah, and cursing the man to walk the earth until he comes back. But no, it didn't. It wasn't nothing. It wasn't anything like that. It was literally like he was born, I don't know, 100 years or less from the time that he was doing that thing. It was like he's like a teenager in a sense, even though he lived for maybe, I don't know, 100 years, 80 years, something like that, if not longer. So yeah, and continues to live today. So it seemed that he was somewhat young as far as these creatures, vampires go. They're not creatures; they're humans that have been transformed.
So is it an alchemical process, this transformation?
Yeah, it's all alchemical. Everything about it is alchemical, because it also relates into changing matter in general, and them having the knowledge in changing matter. And this goes into the secret societies in that whole genre, that whole realm, where they study doing that and then keep that information under the surface and quiet. So yeah, it was this alchemical process that had to do with changing blood out, and energy and blood, among other things, chemicals, herbs, potions, stuff like that. But it's like remote viewing data is not very specific. It's just very general, process.
I have so many questions. Like, what are the names of these types of beings? What are the names that they use to call themselves these things? How many different types of them are there? And why are we we have all of these stories and sort of fantastical ideas around them. Why don't we see or interact more with them, other than, what you said, which is that they're somehow hiding underneath the ground? But
well, it seems to be like when the data came forth on this guy, it was like he was going against what they normally do, or what it was like he was a teenager with the whole thing. And they normally stay further back behind the scenes. They don't they don't do stuff like that to make people question that they can live a long time, that somebody is living a long time. They don't normally do stuff like that. So instead, they'll stay deep back behind the scenes, and they don't necessarily need anything from humans on that level, or any interaction on that level from humans. And they can decide to do whatever they want to do, because you got to think, it's like any vampire story, like Interview with a Vampire, where they can build up wealth and riches over the centuries and not worry or care about a dang thing that humans get involved with, right? But at the same time, I think, some of these people go into wanting to run and rule the world, and segments of the world. Which is
so
another
they'll appear for a short period of time, live a life like that, and then go into the recesses of the world again. Does that
Yeah.
happen, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that happens. And then it begs the question, did Saint Germain show up in Mount Shasta area or within that? Like, how did they glom onto the idea of Saint Germain as an ascended master? Right. See, that's this whole other thing that we haven't looked into that has to be looked into to try and understand, like, where did that influence come from? Because when we look at Saint Germain, he's not that. So did he do that? Was that another one of his tricks, playing
Exploits,
around?
yeah.
Yeah, being a teenager, because heck, he could be a teenager for hundreds and hundreds of years acting out, right? And so you got to wonder. You got to wonder about that part.
Yeah, or wonder about all the parts.
Right.
Because this is really bizarre. I mean, you had told me a little bit about this, but even that wasn't like, there's just so many strange things here. I mean, there are pockets of, I don't know what you want to call them, people that call themselves vampires that you can find data on across the country. Now, I'm not saying they are vampires. I'm saying that there are people calling themselves these things. There's pockets of them in Louisiana. And it's strange that, the setting for True Blood, that series on HBO, was Louisiana, where a lot of this stuff was going down in there. That's a really interesting series if you haven't seen it, by the way. It's just how much stuff is going on that we just don't know about, really. I mean, pretty interesting stuff. And so I wonder, though, is Saint Germain, is he really in the California area? Or
well, that's I mean, was he living in Mount Shasta?
Right.
Seriously? I mean, we've got him underground. We didn't identify the actual location of where he was, but we've got him living in sort of this underground cave-ish type thing. I mean, it's like, it's nice. It's not bad. It's not like he's living in a dirt pit, but it is underground. So what is this, Mount Shasta? I mean, who knows?
Well, and if you think about it, it's like how the elites who are in these secret societies look at us is how the folks that are a part of that whole thing, that are actually immortal or went through this process, would be looking at the occultists and the secret society people from their perspective. Because when you look at all of the discussions around the Philosopher's Stone, immortality, Helena Blavatsky, all these people releasing information on these hidden things, they're very excited and passionate about those things, and they're bringing them forward. But they live their life and they pass, at least as much as far as we know.
Right.
So all of these things being released into the world the way that they are, and people being really interested in them for as long as they have been. And then you've got this account of this strange individual breaking protocol and coming out, having an effect on historical affairs in ordinary society.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're looking at he had knowledge of something from someone, because he had given Louis the 15th or 16th, whatever, knowledge of there being a revolution 15 years later. And Marie Antoinette later on was quoted as saying she had wished that she had listened to Saint Germain when he had given her the warning 15 years earlier. And he was reportedly at her beheading.
Right. Well, that was also the whole thing of like he was literally not supposed to get involved in these types of human affairs as well. Like it was like a reprimand kind of thing that happened to him, because that's not what the other beings wanted to have happen either. And here he was like consorting and getting involved in governments, because I think that he had this egotistical lust for manipulation and power to a certain degree. And so, he was giving information to these people and like advising them and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. He's not who people think he is, though.
What's the end goal of these beings that, have this immortality or have gone through this transformational process. What's their deal? Like, what makes them tick? Why live like
first
that?
off, the original thing of wanting to have immortality is literally fear of death. That's it.
Of course.
Bottom line, fear of death.
I mean, yes, understood there.
Right. I think that as far as what we've seen with Saint Germain, there was no end goal. It was literally just be with what's coming and to see what comes of it. And that's it. And I'm sure that at a certain point, like these, you got to think, like, if you live if you're living thousands of years and everyone else lives only up to 100 years ish, you're either going to go full on, how do I take over the whole world, take over the whole planet? You're either going to go that way, or you're going to go, I just don't care about this. I just don't care about this. What use is this to me? And why am I stuck on this rock? Shoot, I'd be like Elon Musk. I'd be funding space companies who go to different planets and try and explore the universe if you're stuck in the body for hundreds, thousands of years.
Well, and probably though, think about
vampire.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about this pain that you'd have watching everyone around you who you're friends with grow old and die, or even if you had children and having to experience that over and over. I imagine after a while, you would retire. You'd hang that up, and you'd go and chill somewhere, and
you've got everything you need. You've got a palatial estate. I don't know. I mean, look at what happened. Like, look at Dubai Jetman, who was the elite of Dubai, a prince, all the billions money in the world you can have. And he's so bored of everything that he just develops a wingsuit jet and just smashes himself into the side of a building or something because he's so bored. It's like, I think they would just get bored. They probably
happened in
how to
one
commit
lifetime.
Suicide.
Yeah, there's a space vampire. Look at that. That has got to be one of history's greatest cinematic unibrows I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
It's so bad.
That's the future for them, I guess.